Hello everyone, welcome to absence management course today. So today we will break down all the schedule processes that we have in the absence management. So why would we need a schedule process? It is to automate certain things, right? So usually what happens in absence management, we have the absence plan that is configured and the absence that's being taken. So for a staff to consume any absences, the absence must be entitled to them. So if it has to be entitled to them, not every time a HR can manually go and update the absences. Manually, he cannot perform to each and every staff in the organization. So for which we automate this process. So to automate those process as well, if an absence is being taken, the balance has to get deducted based on the absence that he consumes. So this deduction also, it's not the manual process by HR where he goes and checks, okay, how many days of absences a staff has taken. Okay, if it is 4 days, let me go and deduct manually from his balance. This is not how it actually takes place. This is going to get automated through the processes that we schedule. And what are the processes that we have? We have these many processes that we are seeing on the screen. Let's break down each of this process, what exactly the process is, and where do we use it, and when to use it, and if we are scheduling it, at what frequency can we schedule it. Also, let's see the parameters that is involved in each of this process, and then let's get a detailed view of how this process can be used in the absence management. Now, in short, if I have to explain about each of this process, we have 8 processes in total. I have included this process events as well. This is, I'll let you know what exactly this is. Along with it, there is a new process that we have got, which is called as migrate previous version of absence data, which we have got from last year, 2024 upgrades. So yeah, coming to the first absence, evaluate absences. So this absence is rather scheduling it. It works in the back end where at every absence that a staff records, his absence needs to be deducted from his balance. So that automatically is happening. You need not have to schedule any process. If you go to the absence record any absence, the absence gets deducted from his actual balance. That happens because there is an automatic evaluate absence process that is in it. So by this, what it means is this evaluate absence process is to ensure that the absence is getting deducted when the absence is recorded from its balance. Okay. But why do we need to schedule this process when it's automatically being done? Why is it still required to evaluate the absence process? In cases like, let's say, when you are migrating from older absence legacy system to Oracle system, while loading the initial absence entry, you enable the default processing because you wanted to first load everything, run the absence process, and then deduct the absence. So you enable the default processing. After enabling, so the absence is not deducted. Now you want to run all the process, make sure everything is tidy. And then you run the process called evaluate absence process, so that whatever the absence that is loaded through HDL, that absence duration gets deducted from its actual balance. So this is the place where we use. And what other place is? Let's say there is a public holiday added. So what we'll do, we'll open an Excel. Um, so the scheduled processes. What is the definition of the process and when to use it? And also frequency if we are going to schedule the frequency. Okay. So we'll just highlight this. And then first absences, evaluate absences. So what is the definition of this? This process we use to reduce the absence duration from the balance. Okay. So when are we going to use when the deferred processing was enabled? Where do we enable the deferred processing? It's at the absence type configuration. We enable this. So even when the absence is being taken, it doesn't affect the balance. So that's when we use this. And this frequency, it's not just when deferred processing is enabled, it's also when the absence duration is altered. Like how does the absence duration gets affected? When employee himself goes and edit the absence that was applied already, afterwards, if they go and then make some changes on it, it usually the system take care of itself. You need not have to schedule the process. But let's say there is some change in there is some public holiday added. And so in this public holiday, if let's say today is June 1st, and then from June 1st until June 10th, many people might have applied their absences between this date range. And on June 3rd, I would declare it as a public holiday. Not at the beginning of the year, we have declared as an organization. We decide to have this day as a public holiday somewhere in the middle, and we configure this in the system. So in this case, since it was configured after the absence was already applied by the staffs or the employees, what we do, we have to ensure that the absence duration earlier from June 1st to June 10th, whoever has applied, let's say the absence duration was calculated as 7 days. Now it has to be recalculated as 6 days. But does system do it by itself as soon as we add the public holiday? No. So we have to run the evaluate absence process. So these are the cases where we can choose to run the evaluate absence process. Even while debugging certain things, when you record absence, when it's not getting deducted from the balance, this process comes handy. So this is where we can make use of the evaluate absence process. And this, if you're scheduling, this need not have to be scheduled because the automatic process that's getting run, it's being picked at every absence that is taken. But if you would still insist to have this absence process to be run, you can have it scheduled on a daily basis. So second process, let's pick up some important processes first, and then we'll go to the unusual process that we can make use. I wouldn't say unusual, but process which we don't use it regularly for a simpler system. So now, second process we have is update accrual and balance process. So in this process, what happens? This is to enroll the staffs, to enroll as well to de-enroll. De-enroll the staffs based on the eligibility. So like I said, every time when there is a hiring, new hire, every time when there is a change in assignment, so that they lose the eligibility or gets the eligibility, or when there's a termination, it's not that HR does this action manually. So they run this process every day, daily once or daily twice, so that the process picks itself who is eligible for the plan, and they enroll that employee to those enroll the plans to those employees. So this also de-enrolling happens. If the person is losing the eligibility, so it calculates the eligibility. It usually calculates the eligibility. So the eligibility which you attached at the plan level, it is going to check that. So we usually check, have the scheduled on daily, twice or once, based on how frequent the new hires and the termination cases happens in an organization. We decide to schedule this. Likewise, once the enrollment happens, we have to calculate the accruals. The enrollment is happening. They have the enrollment plans available. In the plan participation, if you go and check, the plans would be available with the enrollment start date. If they have a termination date also added, they would have a termination end date, the enrollment end date as well. But what about the balances? How would that get updated? That gets updated because of this process. So what it does is it basically what it says, it is going to calculate the accrual for the staff. For the plans, enrolled and updates the balances. So it calculates the accrual, not just that. The balance would be a summation of leaves taken, accruals that is entitled for a staff. If there is any adjustment, that gets added. So all of this combined would be a balance. So it is going to update this balances, also updates the accrual. So when do we use it? It's similar, like when there is a plan enrollment, higher cases, termination cases, we must know that whenever there's a termination, the enrollment end date pops up automatically because the system runs the process in the backend. It need not have to wait for the scheduled processes. And even when the termination happens, the balance would also get updated. If there is a proration, the proration would be applied accordingly. So this every time the hire happens when the person is enrolled and enrolled to a plan, then the accrual has to be calculated. So all this too, we are saying it for the accrual plans. For the qualification, no entitlement, we need not have to calculate the accrual or we need not have to enroll them to any of the plans, absence plans. It is, they are all separate absence plans and their eligibility, how they function, it is different. So these processes are for the accrual plans that is designed in the system. So this as well, we will schedule it daily, once or twice based on how the organization would require. The next process is withdraw accrual and balances. So now we have calculated the accrual and balances. In case there is some error, there is some extra, withdraw the accruals and balances from the plan. So whatever that is done from this process, it's going to just revert that. But in case of any errors, like for while adding the accruals, there was some error. We have added some extra days of accruals, or customer says that okay, this was the requirement we gave initially, but we now would like to have a change. So we doesn't want the accrual to be this. In this case, you cannot just adjust the balance from the calculator accrual balances. You will have to withdraw it in case there is an adjustment. All this case, we withdraw it. Or also, like if there is any contract extension which is between the two term, if that is happening, or not between two term, I would say between two calendar years. If that is the case, you have to withdraw the accruals from the plan. And then after contract extension has happened, that is the termination gets extended to a future date, you run the calculate accrual process again so that it actually calculates the accrual for the new extended termination. So in this case also, you will have to withdraw the accrual and then rerun the process. So this wouldn't be scheduled. It should not be scheduled. And also while using this process, we have to be very careful we need to say, like we need to, while considering the parameters also for the withdrawal, accrual, and balance process, we need to see what for whom exactly we need to withdraw. Only for the if it is an individual staff, we have to choose that person, ensure that is chosen correctly, and then run the process. Else, it is going to affect every staff and every plan also. It should be if you are doing it for individual plans, the individual absence plan needs to be correctly selected at the parameters level. We'll see that. It should not be scheduled. See, ideally, this process we will not schedule it. But why do we still have this process as a scheduled process? Because in case there is an error, we have to do it for all the staff, then we need some automatic process, which is why we have this process added. And next up, we have what is it? Generate daily breakdown of absence. So why do we make use of this process? I'll give you an example. Like the absence to break down the absences on daily basis. So this also can be scheduled daily once a week. So what happens if there is any absence records which is scheduled in a batch, like multiple absence, multiple days, but it is scheduled as a like single record in single record, and for payroll purposes or for time and absence, if in the absence calendar you wanted to have the individual absences recorded correctly, or if there is a if there was an absence plan which is configured as hourly base, unit of measure is given as hours. So partial absences are allowed. So usually the absence would be taken as 2 hours, 3 hours. It would be taken as that. So how long exactly in a daily wise? So you are going to like a daily granulation. So you will pick up the daily units of the absences from the single records. You need that for reporting purposes. It is mostly for the reporting purpose, payroll reporting purpose specifically. We use it. So in that cases, we make use of this daily breakdown process. So in this case, if there is any conversion formula that is used at the plan level, that is the absence is being recorded in hours, but in the plan you have defined the unit of measure as days because that's how the balance needs to be deducted. In this case, you use a conversion formula at the plan level to convert this hours to days. So the converted days is what is going to get breakdown. So in the daily breakdown, how much ever the converted days it is, that's how it's going to get picked up. In the reports also, that's how we would be seeing. So whatever the plan level, the unit of measure you have given, that's the breakdown that is going to be fetched from the system. And then we have evaluate certification updates. So this is if there is any absences where the certification is attached. That is in the absence type, we attach the certification. For example, sick leave, long service sick leave, uh, like these injury leave. So you will need a medical certificate in this case. So unless you submit a medical certificate or even for other absences, the certifications, if that is required, you would have that plan configuration configured in such a way that the certification would be required. When you have to submit the certification, if it is overdue trigger. If they haven't submit, if let's say 3 days was the configured overdue date, and if it isn't submitted by then the absence has to be like re-entitled. Let's say the payment percentage was 100% if they had submitted the certification before the due date. Now that they have not submitted, we have to recalculate their absences. For that, we use this evaluate absence certification updates. So if the evaluate certification isn't provided by due date, what is the action that needs to be taken? So this usually be scheduled on a daily basis, twice or once. So it tracks the due date of the certification and act accordingly. How does it act? You If you go to the system under manage certification, absence certification updates, you configure how you wanted the certification process to work. So based on that process, what action needs to be taken, this process would take it. When the certification isn't provided before due date under document of records, if it isn't provided before the due date, then the certification process would run, pick those tabs, and then pick those absence records, not staff, pick those absence record. Whatever action that you have given, manage action, manage action, whatever action that you have given, accordingly, this is going to work. Either it's going to reduce the payment percentage of the absences, or it's going to make it as invalid absence. So yeah, it's the HR to record track these absences. We have this absence process. Now, for next process is we saw evaluate certification updates. Now migrate. This is the absence process which we have got from last year. I have not used this absence process so far, but from the definition of this process, what we have come to know is if there was, see, at every upgrades, the version of the system is getting updated. So the absence, there are some new features available now. The Redwood is available. If there are any previous, if company is storing all the historical data like from 2020, or if that records are all there, you have to convert those process, like convert those absence to adapt to the new process, new features, new version of the system. So those absence, it has to be adapted to a new version, which is why we make use of this process. We run this, but how frequent it has to be run, it's on when needed, I would say. This is not like we schedule it. It's all, so even this is when needed. When when it is required, uh, but when exactly we will be required to do this, we need to explore this a bit. But it is basically, so in the absence calendars everywhere, absence duration, if it has to be based on how the new version is available, if it has to be in line with it, then we make use of this previous version of absence data. But this is a new process which is it doesn't stabilize yet, I would say. So as and when we start to use this in the future, we will be having more knowledge when it is required to um, like convert. It's the same thing. It's the same definition. I would say same when we use it. It's the same definition. And the last one we have is process events. This is not like we schedule it every day, but this is, or we can have this scheduled on a daily basis as well. So what exactly it does is, under absence type, you might have seen under additional settings, let's go to the system and see that. I go to the absence type. So I'll just click on create here. Continue. Not going to create any absence, but if you just see this. So here is the event processing. Here you will have to create an event. So this event has to be created separately. And HCM groups also, which you use it for time and labor, that has to be included here. So here usually when there is an assignment change, uh, see this works more towards how evaluate absence process works. So in case there's an assignment change or there's a work schedule change, work pattern gets changed. For example, um, a person who was working at the night now is moved to a daily shift, I mean, day shift. In this case, his work pattern has changed. So if there is any absences which is already taken, there is some change in the schedule. So that future absences might have got affected because of this change in the work pattern. So just to ensure that the pattern changes, whatever has happened, is in line with the absence that is taken. That is, absence gets deducted only for the working days, not for the non-working days. To ensure that we run this process, so if there is an assignment changes, work pattern in such cases, we change this so that his balance would be correctly reflecting based on the absence duration that has to be populated. So it works just like evaluate absences, but we uh, do not make this. I mean, we use this process only for certain groups. Like for the HCM groups we create, if there is any change in the work pattern for them for regularly, then we can have this process scheduled with the event, separate event created. In the action item, so this is the place where we add the certifications. Once we add the certification, for those absences, we will be able to run the process. And daily breakdown process, that process would work and provide the correct data only if this is checked for the individual absence types. So now let's open the schedule process as well. So we have discussed all of this process now. So how do we will just open some important schedule processes. So you see, we have these parameters for the update approval plan enrollment. We have effective date. That is, as of which date you want to have this process run. So if as of 6th of 20th of June, if I run the process, whoever is active, whoever is supposed to be active for the plan, only they will remain active. As of 6th of 20th of June, if they are supposed to be inactivated from the plan, on running this process, their plans would be inactivated. Or as of 20th of June, if the plan has to be newly enrolled for them, or they are newly hired, or they have completed their probation and they have now supposed to get the enrollment. In such cases, when I'm running this process, they get enrolled to the plans. So if I'm running this for an individual person, we select an individual person here. Only an individual person can be selected. So if there are some complex logic, let's say I don't need to run this for based on legal employer, based on business unit, uh, business absence plan. It's not based on that, but I want to run it for a certain population. And that certain population which we fix, it's a little complicated. In such case, what do we do? We can use this person selection rule parameter where we get to choose the pass formula here. So you have to create a person selection pass formula and you will choose the staff, those selected staff only for that. Then if you want to run the schedule processes on daily basis or however or on the one-time ad hoc basis, you can choose that as well using this person selection rule. So there could be an interview question where they ask you, in case you wanted to run it only for the selected workers, how do you do it using the scheduled process? So we have this person selection rule in all the absence processes, which we can select. So this is the person, if I'm doing it for individual employee, that is while testing or when I have to fix certain issue only for individual employees, then I can choose this, or I can choose this business unit if that is the filter parameter that I have to consider. Legal employer, what is the plan category? If there's a if here the plan category is not created, the plan category is created as well. Based on that selection as well, I could do that. Changes since last run, when if there is any assignment changes, should I run this only from then? All the selection, all these parameters are available. So let's also open calculate accrual and imbalances process also. The parameters is almost the same. We get to choose the repeating period as well if once we select the absence period, and payroll relationship group. Based on that, if I have to run, I can choose it. Payroll person selection rule, every parameters is the same. So here we have one more thing, like if you have to debug your accrual formula, like if there is a custom pass formula that you have attached, so accrual has some complicated logic and you have created a custom pass formula, but now there is some issue. You have to debug that. In that case, what do we do? You can include this trace statement in the audit log so that everything in detail would come and sit under a log file. Even if it is not selected also, based on what is the debug statement, what usually happens when I run this calculate approval process. So that data would be available. So that log file or the output file is the one where we can use to see how many staff have got enrolled, how many staff have got the approval, which staff has got skipped. So for debugging purposes, the scheduled processes log file will come to use. So run as test. These are the checkboxes which you could check while running the process as well. Plan type, based on plan type also, if you want to select the yeah, parameters that you could choose it. Now let's cancel this. Withdraw accrual and balances also. While running this process, we must be careful. Like I said, in this we have two options. Whether withdrawing accrual and balances, or also you can delete the whole enrollment. So though the process name says the withdrawal, accrual and balances, there is two options in the drop down in the processing option. If you say with enrollment deletion and run as of today, whichever staff who was enrolled, even though they are eligible in the future as well, because you are forcefully deleting the enrollment from the staff, it gets deleted. The enrollment gets deleted. So selecting the person is important here. It should be likely done. And if it has to be done for all enrollments, you can just select the person. Otherwise, if it has to be for individual absences, then you can select this parameter. Likewise, we have other usual parameters. So for all the absences, we have the log file. If I choose to run any absence processes, it would have the log file as well. So in the generate daily breakdown process also, we don't have a person selection field here. So we cannot do the pass formula where you can only generate the daily breakdown for certain staff. That is not possible in this. You can select the absence start date and absence end date as well. If you select the effective date, that is as of effective date, which records are active. But if you select absence start date and end date, this gets like if I choose this, it gets this would not be enabled or this would not work. So it is between the absence start date and end date. Whichever absence start date is falling between this two date range, that comes up. And if I choose the end date as well, whichever end date is between this date range, that comes up. So you can select for an individual person you wanted to see the daily breakdown that can be seen. So this usually is the payroll reporting. If you have configured or integrated the payroll in the Oracle system, and if you want to have their daily breakdown of the absences, then you can make use of this process. So we have seen and the evaluate absence process, the parameters are a little different. You can see the other ones are all fine. Person selection rule is also there. In this work schedule rule, this we could select it as well. There is a record selection. Who do you want to run this? Is it only for all the absences or only the duration changes? For the ones with absences where the duration has changed, do you want to only pick those? Or only when the I told when there's a deferred absences which was configured, when you disable them, is it only for that absences that you want to do it? Or if there is a open, it is also if there is an extension in the open-ended absences. So let's say there is an open-ended absences where you do not have an end date, and that gets extended. If now you have to choose the you have to run this process so that the absence duration everything gets calculated correctly. So even for that purpose we make use of this. So process events, there is not much of parameter here. You can choose the legal employer, you can choose which person selection rule it is, even run the process. So that was about certification update also. If you don't get to choose action here, you're just going to schedule this. And then under certification, manage certification itself, you define every action, what is the due date, how it has to be considered. Everything has to be configured in there. Okay. So this was about, let me run one process and show you how the log file can be fetched. So I'll not choose anything. I'll just submit it. If I include audit log, every the log file would come in detail. But I'll just click on submit to see the basic log file that we have. So who do we have to generate this? I mean, who do we have to generate? For example, update and all. Who do we have to involve the process and plan absence plan? Only for those we have to select the parameters correctly. Since I have run for only one staff, it has not taken much time. So this is the output file that we are seeing. File. So this is how the log file would be. Basic log file excluding the audit logs. So it says how many, if there is any pass formula that is executed. There was no pass formula that is executed for this stack because the stack was originally not supposed to be involved in anything. But if there was any pass formula that is executed while this process was run, so whichever the pass formula that gets executed when I run the update environment processes, the absent pass formula that you have attached at the enrollment start date, enrollment end date, and the eligibility pass formula. So these are the pass formula that runs while I run this process. For calculate accrual and balances, now I have run the update accrual and enrollment. For calculate accrual and enrollment, it runs, it considers the proration formula, global absence accrual formula that is attached under accrual tab. So those are the absences which run. If whatever the past formula that was chosen, It comes here. Now that nothing has run for this, you will not be able to see any data because the staff was not eligible for any enrollments. But based on whatever the enrollment that is, those absence plans pass formula would run if the pass formula is available. If not, if it is a pretty straightforward configuration, if it is eligible or not eligible, you would see the eligibility conditions as well if that is written under the you see, and there is a under fast formula, if you write ESS log write, that's how you can write the statement for the debugging purposes. And for validation formula, if you are writing, you have to write it error log statement where you have to return the error log file, etc. So that would be available in the UI, which is all a separate concept which is available in fast formula. But just to let you know how this is going to be useful is when you write the ESS log write statement, that comes up in the log file, and you would be able to understand how the fast formula flow has happened. Why exactly, if the staff is not enrolled correctly, why is it not enrolled, though you are seeing all the eligibility conditions met. So everything could be debugged using this log file. So that was about today's session. We will meet again with another interesting concept next time. Thank you.